say that.
This podcast is sponsored by A2D, Addicted to Dance Company. Check us out on the web, a2dance.com. We're a growing foundation, giving back to our community, and changing lives is our mission.
It's time to harvest you.
Let's nourish our mama joy by living big and loving bigger. I'm Aubrey.
And I'm Theresa. And in this episode, we're talking about
the transition from our children looking at us being their sun and their moon, to all of a sudden not. And how that feels, how mamas can move through that, and that strike in the heart that happens every once in a while as this transitioning is happening. Welcome to our podcast. Let's get started harvesting you.
The Carpenter's Notebook by Mark Clement. 2 years after his father's death, Brendan is staring down the barrel of a divorce. He leaves his daughters in collapsing marriage to fulfill a promise his father made to his mother, and he discovers the answers he wasn't looking for that end up helping him with his own life.
I reached for my tape more like a gunslinger going for a six-shooter rather than a timid, albeit middle-aged, apprentice afraid to do the wrong thing.
Dean Johnson, co-host of Home Time, says home improvement is a thread that runs through many of our lives. Mark has woven it into a very rich and unique story. Brett Witter, publisher of Chicken Soup for the Soul, says a wonderful book about building both houses and relationships that is wise, touching, and as satisfying as a hard day's work well done. Like Chicken Soup for the Soul, it shows us that great wisdom is built from the material of everyday life. Check out The Carpenter's Notebook by Mark Clement on Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com, and at bookstores nationwide.
Did you experience this with Jack?
transitioning is really hard. And transitioning from being a kid to a teenager is almost as hard as the transition from baby to when baby is somewhere else, is with a caregiver, is with daycare, is with whatever. That first moment leaving the baby, like saying, I will trust this person with my child. That's really hard. And the transition to when that baby grows up and is like, go away. It's really hard. Because it happens, the go away business, when they get to be teenagers. And I don't need you. I got this. And then I know.
They do, but they so do need you.
But they so don't want to, because they're striking out on their own. They want to be independent. They want to be fully formed. Like my son says, he is not a child anymore. And I keep reminding him, technically you're a child until you're 18, darling. And then he's like, wow, I'm a teenager. It's like, yes, you are a teenager, but you can't go out on your own, even though you want to. Mm-hmm. Go and have your own apartment and make your own decisions. But he knows he's not ready for all that. But he's asserting himself as being an independent young man. And that's hard.
It's hard. It is hard to witness. It's hard to go through. It's hard to support, because you too, at least I feel, I'm looking for, wait, but you do need me. And it's like a tug of war rope, and it's learning how to not let go of that rope, because they do still need you. They just need their independence too. So giving them that space to learn new, and you not knowing all their, I was Chase's secret keeper. I was his go-to for, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 11, it started to shift. Like it just started to shift, and I noticed it, and I can remember being like, why does he want to spend so much time in his room? Why does he want to spend so much, like there was less time of, hey, let's watch a movie or let's do something together, and more needing that independence. And that in between, mamas, I can promise you it does get better and the relationships do grow bigger, right? Like, don't you feel like I've loved every stage, and I've had every stage also where there's like, sadness. Like, I used to cry every year when my kids got older. And now, like, over the past couple years, it's like watching them become their own and this new person, and it's exciting. And there are those moments, though, where it's like you need to be on the other end of that rope, because if they fall back, they're expecting to fall on you. Yes. So don't give up. Don't think that you are not important anymore, because you are important.
Yes, no matter what they say, because I know he doesn't mean it when he says he doesn't want me around or need me. Mm-hmm. Because then he turns around and then he wants me around and he needs me. And then, so it's this weird game of like playing jump rope and knowing when to jump in the rope and when to jump out, okay, I'm here to play. I'm here not to play. I'm going to be standing over here, just ready in case we need something. And my kid's always been fiercely independent, and he played by himself a lot, and he did his own thing a lot. And he's always wanted to have that independence. So that isn't completely new to me. It's that he is a little bit more resistant to
vulnerability.
Yeah. Being a kid, like admitting that he wants me and needs me around. And then when he's not thinking about it, it's easy. But when he's thinking about it, he's like, yeah, I'm all grown up. Then he's more resistant of me, and he does the same thing with his father, which is a different experience altogether, because he wants to show his father he's fully capable and show his father he can. And he doesn't admit anything vulnerable at all to his father. He wants to be, I know what I'm doing. And he says different words to me than he does to his dad. And his dad never hears some of the words he says to me. And it's funny seeing him trying to navigate those two different relationships. Because he will tell me I'm weird. We went this whole thing yesterday. Mom, you're so weird. Why are you so weird? Why don't you act your age? Why are you so silly? And then I asked him how old I act, and he's like 20. And I was like, how old are you? And he's like 40. And I'm like, sometimes I feel that way. You act like you're way older than you are. And he thinks that I don't act as old as I am. And then he said his father acts like he's 60 years old. Like he acts like he's grumpy, like he's old and stuck in his ways. And he kind of is in a lot of ways.
I think it's sweet to recognize that Jack recognizes the relationships, what he's comfortable with you, what he's comfortable with Mark. Yeah. That's a maturity thing, where a lot of kids, like I have a 13-year-old who is that he's very much, he teeter-totters with how to feel. And Chase is also a super, super feelings kid. So if he's in an environment where it's uncomfortable, or there's hostility, or there's anger, or there's fighting, like Chase can feel it before he even walks in the door. He's just super, super intuitive like that. So when it comes to that way of communicating, he's better aligned to communicate with me, because I come from that, where Ava floats her own boat. She can go every way, up, down, crisscross, right? Like, she's as silly with her dad as she is with me. And I feel for the mamas. I see a lot of mamas right now that have kids younger than us, younger than our children, who are like, oh, I'm starting to feel that struggle. Like, so-and-so wants more time to herself, or she wants to come home and jump on the phone with her friends or do this. And my advice is hang on. Like, they're not, it's going to come back, and it's going to come back even better. Like, Ava and she's younger, but she is an old soul. Ava is way wiser beyond her years, more than any 12-year-old girl I've ever met. And so we have long car rides to the barn. So I tell her no phone on the way to the barn, and we talk. And, maybe she doesn't want to tell me everything that's going on with the girl dynamic, or with the mean girls at school, or with this one or that. But I still get that opportunity to engage and try to get in her world, which I think, we've talked about multiple times, like getting in their world. But right now, like, sometimes they don't want us in their world. Sometimes they want that space, and you got to be okay with that. It's like that getting comfortable with being uncomfortable. Well, that kind of goes for your kids too, right?
Yeah.
And
and we need to leave them. We need to, there's times when they're mouthy and they say they resist. And that's a difference than when they're just needing their own space, because they're trying to be fully formed people, and they're going to be grown-ups for most of their lives. And it does change. Like, my relationship with Jack has changed, that I have a different relationship now than we did a few years ago. And we have conversations now about stuff that we would have years ago that are completely turned, where he sees differently now. He's got a different perspective, and he can take in information that he wasn't able to when he was a little kid. And so it's more meaningful conversations that I can have with him, more meaningful interactions than just like, you need to brush your teeth, here are your clean clothes, you need to take a bath, like the basic things that we have to do as parents. But there's more meaning. It's just fewer of those events that happen throughout the day. And it's sad, and we need to not gloss over that sadness too, of letting our children, letting that part of childhood go. Like, it's leaving.
It's a rite of passage. Yeah.
And it's okay, because we went through it as kids, and when I think about when I was that age and what I was doing and what was happening, and how I resisted my parents. And so it's a natural progression. It's just that I was saying this to him recently, that when I was his age and we used to do events at school, like 1950s kinds of things, when I was like in little grade school, and thinking about how long ago that felt to me when I was in grade school. And that was only like 30 some years before. And then now thinking about what 30 years ago was to me is now to him doesn't feel like 30 years the same way as it did when I was, a kid in the 1980s.
Right.
That 50s felt forever ago. And I remember how my dad used to light up, because like 50s, he was in his 20s and he was having a good old time with his friends. And I remember him getting excited about those 50s things. So the time perspective is different. For our kids, it seems like so long ago that they were little people. But for us, it feels like not as long ago. And it's harder, I think, for us to adjust to that because of that time. It's like a time warp or something. I don't know what it is, but it's like, 10 years
it just happens. Yeah. It just happened. But this is what this Mama Unity community is all about, being able to recognize like these feelings are normal, and that feeling like when you're like, oh my God, I feel like I just got stabbed in the heart. Like it does happen. And I swore when they were little, that's not going to happen to me. All these parents that said it was going to happen. Oh, hell yeah, it's going to happen. It happens to everybody at some given moment in time, because they're growing older and there's no stopping that. They're getting bigger. Like you said, they're going to be adults for the rest of their life.
For hopefully a very long time too.
Savoring, it's like savor the flavor. You know, when you're eating the ice cream, savor the flavor. Like when you're drinking the coffee, savor the flavor of watching and being able to bear witness to watching our children grow and go through all of these new paths. And it can be such a struggle. It can.
Yeah,
the boys, the girls, the mean girls, the up and down, the hormones, they don't know why they feel the way they feel. And then you like explain to them why they feel the way they feel. And they're uncomfortable with why you're explaining to them the way they feel. It's an ever evolving thing. But I think the sooner we can capture those moments in speaking to them, the better understanding they have as to, hey, I will always be on the other side of that rope. No matter how much distance you need to put up right now, I'm still going to be standing there holding on to it. And I will pick you up. I will back you up, because that's unconditional love.
Yes. And that's really important. And I love the rope analogy. We used to say that to Lexi all the time when she was a preteener. You can always call us. It doesn't matter what you got yourself into out there in the world. If you need to call someone and be safe, we won't judge. We will come get you, and then we will deal with it, whatever it is. But that's the rope, you know. I will be here for you. I will support you and help you. Just call me, just ask me. I will be here for you. And I think that, like, as mamas, we create our nest. And you know, people call your house, like, the house is a nest, but it is a nest. It's like that comforting place, you know, creating that environment where kids can feel welcome, where kids and their friends can feel welcome to come and be, and feel like they can be themselves and feel like they're being supported. And I think that is a huge gift to give to kids, especially as they're transitioning from kid to preteen to teen to young adult. And I know I always thought that even being a grown up, even being married, I always had that feeling like if I needed help, I could always call my parents and they would help me. They would find a way to help me, because they gave me that support as a person growing up, and knowing that they would be there to, if something happened, I had that nest. I had that rope. You know, that rope was strong. And I mean, I mouthed off a lot and stuff like that as a teenager. And I was
all did.
But they still, like, I still always felt confident in that. And I think that's like a huge thing, because not every kid picks up with that rope.
No, and you can't assume that your child just knows that. So I think speaking it is super, super important, and it's affirming to them that no matter what I do, come hell or high water, it's going to be okay. Tomorrow's going to be a better day. We're going to work it out. I think having that line of communication that is always kept open. Are you good? Because I can tell you're a little off. Yeah, I don't want to talk about it. Okay, when you're ready to talk about it, if you want to write about it, or you want to, you know, I'm your keeper. It's funny. I said last week, I'm doing all the things. doing lots of all the things, extra things. And I said, I'm everybody's keeper. I'm everybody's keeper. I'm the keeper of everybody's things. I know where everybody's things are. Who's my keeper? I need a keeper. Right? And my husband, who's been going through this whole, life transition of things that he's been dealing with over the past few months, he's like, I'm your keeper. Even though I'm not 100% myself now, I'll be your keeper. I'm like, well, thank you, because someone needs to catch me when I'm, like, because I feel like I'm catching everybody else. So it's important to have that conversation.
It is important because I think women tend to try to help everybody else before we go ourselves, or help everyone else before we ask for help, or wait until we're at the end of our rope and say, why do I have to do everything? Why can't you people? One of those kinds of moments. And before it gets to that point, it's important to speak up. Just like we're trying to teach our kids that they can rely on us, and in order to know that we're not going to go crazy when something goes not really the way that they want it to. We need to show that we can handle, and we are, and we're
and to make good decisions, because the older they get, I mean, especially the boys right now, like, they're tall, they look like small grown men, right? Yeah. Like, they look like they may be little boys still inside, and maturity level, sometimes backs down. But when other people look at them, they're looking at them as teenagers, even though they're still 13, 14. And something we've really been dealing with in the month of January is make sure you're responsible for your words, your actions, what you text, what you write, what you say. Words hurt. And it goes both ways. So I can't jump in front of you and I can't protect you if you put something out there that is mean or hard, or we can talk about it, but there's going to be consequence. So it's kind of like making sure they're set up for knowing, you do X, this is the consequence. You do Y, this is the consequence. Or there's always that in between. Give your kid a code word. If they're in a situation and they want to be picked up, they're at a friend's house, and all of a sudden things are kind of getting out of control and they're getting uncomfortable. It's like, send me something, come up with something, and then that's your cue to call to say, hey, I'm coming to pick you up because you didn't do X. You didn't clean up your room. You were and then you pick them up. So that's also having the other end of the rope. But communicating and talking to these kids about all of these things is so meaningful and so important, because just assuming that they know, they don't know. They don't know. I can promise you, my 13-year-old does not know. I have to have these conversations with him, even though he may turn to me and say, I know, Mom. I know. And I'm like, yeah, but did you really understand, like, how it can go from here to here very quickly now that you're older? And because it can, and it does. And I've seen it.
Yeah. No, those conversations are really important, and not assuming that they know, because, just what you said. I also find that asking Jack for help with things also helps to build that bond and that trust, because he doesn't like to be asked to do things just to do them. He likes to be asked to do things that I actually do need help with. Like, I have a torn shoulder, so opening jars and certain things, like pulling laundry out of the dryer, is hard for me because I have a torn shoulder. So he knows that, and he is very willing to help me. But then he has a participatory relationship with me where I'm helping him and he's helping me too. That helps to build his confidence in the household and in the family. Like, he is not just the guy that takes out the trash because he thinks, like he said last night, why can't dad do it? He can do it. And I'm like, I can't because of my shoulder. I can't carry the trash cans down the stairs that are full. He's like, yeah, I know about you, but why can't dad do it? And it's like,
it's
you're right.
He's
physically able to do this job. So he needs to feel like he has value and importance, and he's a participant. And the older he gets, he needs to have that role more and more and more defined as being his unique role in our family too. Like we have a drone that we've had for years. I've never used. This morning I said to him, well, your assignment after school, your chore today is to finally learn how to use this drone because we want to use it in our backyard to show projects. And he's like, that's a weird chore. Like, yes, it is a weird chore, but you're great with technology, and this is something that you can do, and this would be really helpful to our house and our family and our work and all of our stuff. And he gets that. So I think in seeing Jack transition into this where he thinks he's a grown-up already, is to give him some more of that stuff. And not
experience.
Yeah, not just to take out the trash, set the table, unload the dishwasher stuff, but things that are uniquely identified and in their wheelhouse of strengths, so that they feel like there's value there. Because I know when I feel like I'm contributing something that's my uniqueness, I feel like I'm part of it. Like I feel more part of the whole thing than I do feel like I'm just some person over here doing like stapling stuff or filing or whatever the mundane thing is.
No, I love that. It reminds me of this past week. Avas Infusions we have to use two different tubings. And in order to switch off to the second, when she's done the first, I literally need a third hand. And can Ava and I do it? Yes. Ava doesn't really enjoy seeing the second part. So this past infusion, I was like, Chase, can you come here? Because he's not involved in the infusions like he was when they first started, where we were like, we need to experience this as a family. You need to understand what she's going through, because attention is attention, whether it was good or bad, right? And I said, okay, I need you to hold this. Do not touch the top of it. Just stand here and hold this. Let me unlock this. And then we're going to switch and you're going to give me this. He came up, he did it. And just for that moment, he felt a part of it. And even though it was a chore for him to get out of, he was laying with his dad on the couch watching a show, and he got up. What do you need? What do you need? Because I was like, I really could use your help right now. What do you need? All right. And he followed up, and I think that gave him a little bit of, maybe later or in the moment, gave him some clarity of, oh yeah, my sister has to do this stuff. Oh yeah. I just always kind of peek my head in, and I'm, because that's what he does. He'll peek his head in and say, are you good? Do you want me to sit with you? Are you okay? She had a friend over, that keeps it moving. So then he feels like he doesn't have to be involved. Well, there's sometimes where there's not a friend, and I'm like, she could really use someone to just sit there and watch a show with her or keep her mind. So yeah, it's little things like that. It builds their perspective too. It builds, like you're saying, it builds them up. It makes them feel they have more than a place than just being a child, or just having the same routine of taking out the trash, or just having, we have a shared, what am I trying to say? Calendar on our phone. And it's like, Club Conley chores. And it's, Chase, take out the trash. And I'll watch it come up, and it comes up on all our phones. And I'm like, I wonder how long it's going to be until he actually gets up and takes out the trash, and sometimes he does it right away. And sometimes he's like, swipe. And then it's 9 o'clock and I'm like, now you're walking outside in the dark. Good luck. We have no street lights. I know you don't like to walk outside in the dark, but you made that choice. So if you want to act like a grown up, then you need to do it when it came up.
Now,
so yes, the struggle is real.
It is. And it is hard. And it's hard in different ways for every family. Mm-hmm. And it's hard in every way for different ways for every child and parent. And
yes, every child is unique. They have their own way. And what you may think, like what I may think, is not the way he would do it. So giving them that space.
Yeah. And some kids respond to like being forceful and domineering and demanding. And mm-hmm. some kids need a lighter touch and some kids mm-hmm. need, it's different. Every kid is different. And I think that's what's so great about Harvesting You is that we can talk about it.
Yeah. Uncensored, unfiltered, there's, what do we have to hide? I think allowing ourselves to be vulnerable as mamas is just refilling that bucket, refueling our mojo to help us fill up so we can be the best for ourselves and others. And I think it is important to recognize that we have to show up for ourselves first, because otherwise we get drained emotionally. We end up with anxiety hangovers. We end up sick or, just down to the ground if we're not filling up our buckets. And when things like this, when transition of kids changing and growing and doing and older, if we're not set up internally fully in that soul self space, it's harder to navigate. And it's already hard to navigate.
Absolutely. It is hard to navigate. And transitioning is just another layer of that. Mm-hmm. And it's not like they haven't been changing all along, but when puberty hits, there is a clear change occurring. Yes. That is, it makes a lot of us look at baby pictures and say, I remember when.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot
those
of that.
Facebook throwbacks. Yeah. Because they're changing mentally. They're changing physically. They're questioning everything. They're changing soulfully. And they don't understand all the changes. I had to explain to Ava what PMSing means. And then she's like, oh, that makes sense. Or when Mercury was in retrograde, explaining to her about how, the planets you normally move east to west, and retrograde means it goes opposite. And we feel that vibration, that everything is made of energy, and we feel that change in energy. And if you're super grounded and intuitive and allow that in, it will flip you. Kind of to understand.
I had that conversation with my husband on 2/2/22.
Yep.
And I said that the energy there's a shift that occurs. And I said that to Jack. I said that to him. And my husband said, oh, that's just a bunch of malarkey. And I said, but no, it's not, because there are chemical reactions that happen that are different because of sunlight, because of temperature, because of, the way molecules move, the way energy is
everywhere
moving in a different way. And it does happen because we are part of this nature. So, and nature does change, and nature is affected by itself and by these subtleties that happen. And we feel it. It affects moods. It affects how we feel. It affects how productive we can be. Mm-hmm. There's so much there that.
And we can observe it from just watching nature. and how they react to the full moon, how your animals, like, they're all super, super affected by that transition, that new coming in, old going out. And it's really nice when you can acknowledge and realize that this is a thing. It does happen. Energy is real. This is scientific stuff, guys. The way it impacts us once we understand, okay, wait a minute, it's a new moon, or the 22. It's kind of flipping things around a little bit. I know why I'm off balance today. I know why they're off balance today. Maybe I need to have a conversation with that child as to why, and have them understand that it's kind of like your vibes attract your tribe. Well, the energy that's happening in the world and in the universe is having an effect on how you and everybody else around you may or may not be feeling.
Yeah, I agree. Absolutely. I think being aware of that is important, and recognizing it is important. I think it's like the best thing we can do for our kids is be available as they're transitioning, and then also be available to give these insights and say, you're feeling this, and this might be why, and it might not be, it might be this other reason, but giving them something to lean into, something to not just have the feelings that are just floating around, because it's hard as a preteener and a teener and going through all that, and young adult, and knowing that they're not the only ones going through this.
Right. And they might not know how to ask the questions they want to ask, because they're not really sure with what. So being that line of communication for them is really what they need, versus just shutting them down when they're mouthing off, or sending them to their room, or, starting a new day and not reflecting back on why this, outburst or outrage occurred the prior day. You can't just step over things, because then they fester and they'll be in therapy when they're 30 from them.
I feel like, as parents, we're not only like a guide and a protector of our kids, but we're also a translator of the world for our children, translator between the world and them as they're going along, and as they're going to be interacting with the world solely on their own too. But we need to translate things for them so that they have the tools, the language, and the confidence and ability to be able to be fully formed grown-ups
and make good decisions.
Yes. I hope. Yeah. We all, right? Yeah.
All we can do is guide, like you said. Well, thank you.
I feel really good.
Great. Me too. This is a great talk.
Honestly, because this is one of those things that just weighs on me all of the time about that transition, and I try to deal with it, and it's nice to talk about it, and it's nice, for the mamas that are listening, I hope that you picked something up. I hope that something that we said connected or sparked, or something that you might try or think about a little differently that might make your days a little bit easier with your kids.
Yes, please comment, subscribe, give us feedback. Let us know what you got out of this podcast. Share it with a friend, another mama friend. The more you share, the more our Mama Unity community can grow organically and touch other mamas around the world.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us.
We didn't say that. I didn't say that.